Hey everybody, Jesse here, sales lead at Finsweet, and today I have joining me Jay Wolff, who is our head of agency here at Finsweet.
Hey, Jesse.
And today we are going to lean into some of Jay's past experience. Prior to joining Finsweet, Jay built and led multiple creative agencies, and some of those would go on to sell. He worked with clients like Red Bull, Nike, Mercedes, MTV, and the list kind of goes on. And today we get to sit down and look back at some of the stories and lessons that Jay has learned over the years and see how those have translated into his time here at Finsweet.
That's it, sweet.
So maybe we can start with an easy question, a little bit of personal background. You're married, you have kids. Give us a little bit of background about yourself and kind of where you're at.
Oh gosh. Well, very simply, I live in Los Angeles now. I'm actually originally from Oklahoma. Went to school in Dallas. Had an agency there. Ended up in Seattle after selling that first one. Ran a restaurant for 10 years because I was semi-retired. Moved my parents and worked with them for a while. That was an experience. I got back into the agency business in San Francisco. I've had offices in Sydney, Australia, a couple of different times with different companies, and ran those agencies. Now I'm in LA, and oddly, when I was leaving San Francisco, I was interviewing for an agency in New York City and an agency in LA at the time, and also an agency in Beijing. And I was really intrigued by that. So I went to interview, spent a week in Beijing interviewing with this amazing group of talent, owned partly by some American guys and partly by some Chinese guys. And it just so happens that on my layover coming back home to the States, I was returning to San Francisco, but I stopped off in LA and had to stay overnight. So I went to see a friend, and it was Halloween, so he took me to, he had kids, and he said, you're Uncle Jay to my kids, so you have to go trick-or-treating. And I did, and trick-or-treating starts at their friend Cece's house, who also had kids of the same age. And that is where I met the love of my life. And Cece, who was the hostess for all of everyone who went trick-or-treating in their neighborhood, is just this amazing, incredible, beautiful woman who's also a successful producer, a business owner of her own, an entrepreneur. She owns a little real estate, and we now own a little real estate together. That's kind of what we do together. And she had and has, of course, two beautiful daughters. Since we're not on TV, I'm going to show my screen here. Two beautiful daughters that I, inherited in this kind of lucky gambit. And thank God I didn't take the job in New York or LA initially and missed that trip to China, which landed me here.
Yeah.
So we've been together 10 years, and again, she's so entrepreneurial. She gives me good advice. She gets into a lot of the same things that I would, and we have a lot of good fun together as far as projects and business and raising, two amazing kids.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know you went to school, was it for computer science?
A little. I was in discrete computational structures class looking around, and I thought, wow, the same 31 people are in all 6 of my classes. And I thought, I need to pivot. The pivot wasn't a thing back then, but I need to do something different. So I decided that was just too small for me, and I pivoted, ended up getting an economics degree, which is pretty irrelevant to my plans and my goals. But I had, a lot of computer engineering experience in the beginning where we were writing, code in these obscure languages, and that are no longer around. And but I came out of that, at the same time I had a t-shirt company paying my way through school, and so I was, drawing and illustrating and designing for that, but then taking, engineering classes. And I think I stepped out of that by, into a place where I could talk to designers, I could talk to clients about design, and I could also talk to engineers because I knew what they were doing and what they were confronted with and what they were challenged with. So I ended up being the guy that, in my first company, always talked to the client, because I could get everybody, I could get the engineers and the designers working together, and I could get the three of them to work together, even further.
Yeah. Do you think that's kind of what attracted you to agency work? I know with an economics degree and interest in technology, you could go so many different directions. What do you think was it that kind of initially put you onto getting involved with an agency?
Well, so, the truth is, I would never have chosen to be in the agency business at that time, right? Yeah. So it was really an accident. My best friend from college and I started an animation company because we figured out we could buy new Macintosh computers for half price or something, or 40% or something from as long as we were students. So we convinced a bank to give us a loan. We bought these machines, incredibly archaic and way overpriced at the time. That's another story. But we had an animation company, and we were, our goal was to get Harold and the Purple Crayon, which is a children's book all of you should have, and put that on the computer so that when the child draws, the story would come from the shapes that the child was drawing. This is really a long time ago. This is pre-internet. So this is completely unrealistic thinking and, irrational, ideas with no plans in place, no way to really execute. But we were out to invent something, right? We started an animation company thinking that would pay the bills, and then we were trying to do interactive media. There was no UX UI, there was no, there were no entrepreneurial classes, there were nothing about startups. I'm really dating myself, but basically, it was kind of the early conversation about, wow, will the TV win or will the PC win? And that was everyone's kind of, headline at the conferences, is the TV versus PC. And I gave a lecture one time where, not a lecture, but I was, one of the panelists for a Microsoft conference. And, I said, you guys got to quit having this argument because they're both going to exist. The TV is just going to get more and more like your PC, and your PC is going to get more and more like your TV. But they will both live on. They are just, going to be more and more and more similar. And we were in that space trying to kind of invent what happens there. We did things like, putting touchscreen kiosks in every Best Buy in the country. That went on to every Walmart in the country so that people could preview new music releases. And we did big interactive displays for conferences and things. And this is just like my best friend and I from college. It turned into this crazy creative plus technology kind of venture. And we didn't ever even think of it being an ad agency. But a competitor came to town once and tried to buy us, and we declined many times. I declined for like a year. So we finally opened an office up in Dallas, and where we were based. And he offered for everyone who worked at my agency, it was called Big Hand at the time, anyone who worked at Big Hand could come in with a pay slip and get their salary doubled to work for him.
Wow.
And so he gutted my company. We went from 30 people to 6. And that's when I knew we were an ad agency. that he, because he had been explaining to me for a year how all of these brands were going to move to interactive media, and they were going to want all of these touch screens, and they were going to want a website. I mean, I don't even think we were talking about websites at the time. I'm not really sure. It was really early, but I then learned the lesson that we weren't just a kind of a scrappy lab inventing, one-off projects. We were, but the business that you needed to be in was building these things for big brands.
Yeah.
And so then I got my first, lesson in the agency business.
That's so interesting. What do you think like the biggest difference is between agencies, creative agencies, could be, media or something like we do at Finsweet, the difference between agencies in that time versus like right now? Is it just the things that we're working on, or was there kind of a structural difference? What do you think?
The agencies used to make their money when they would print something. You basically did the creative work and kind of gave it away in order to get the printing business that came out of that, or the TV buys, right? The media buys. And to some extent, that's still a bit of the business, right? The bigger agencies, they do all of the buying for the client, or a lot of the buying for the client. But as clients are able to bring more and more of that in house with software tools and networks, marketplaces online, and that's really kind of hard to keep up. So that's probably a big change between now and then. Plus, the agencies were run well. Yeah, I don't know if they're all that different. I mean, I know our agency is different, right? Finsweet's different. We choose to not live in work in a fear-based environment.
Hustle culture type of thing.
Yeah, so there's a cultural change for sure. I think anyone that comes out of the software business is much more tolerant, kind of probably realistic about deadlines, and you just can't. Probably more realistic about deadlines and the realities of doing the work. I know in the agency business, it's so fear-based that you're always afraid of losing that big client. And even though I'm in the agency business, I've been in, started several and run many and sold a few. You have to choose not to kind of live like that. Right. So I think a lot of people from the software industry and the inventive, space around websites and technology have probably been good for the ad industry. So you get rid of some of that old guard thinking. You get rid of this kind of, domineering approach to work. And, I think there's a lot more balance today. I think there's a lot more tolerance for just balancing your life and your work. I hope it's true for us. I know. Yeah. I hope that's true for most.
Yeah. Yeah. Over the years, with your experience running and kind of managing agencies, how has that, how has your personal life played into that with raising kids and, stewarding your relationship with your wife, while also managing the tension of, what you're exactly what you're just talking about with kind of the hard agency culture at times. Was the biggest impact just switching the culture that you kind of implemented at those agencies and then allowing that to, your personal life to mesh with that?
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, I think I did it wrong for a while, right? I was single for a long time, right? I mean, Cece's my first, not my first relationship, but certainly we've been together 10 years, and I've never done that before.
Yeah.
I always had these, I gave up a lot of friends. I think I missed a lot of things with family. I was just the guy who worked, and it was fascinating. It was amazing work. So it was, it was incredibly compelling, and it was exciting. And, again, we thought we were inventing everything. And, one shift now is I don't think that, because, I don't think of myself as so smart that I now have to do everything new. Like we kind of, in those days, because of maybe our position so early in that market, like when we were literally inventing some things, a lot of things, I did a lot of firsts. And because of our age, just, being irrational youth, we probably thought a little too much of ourselves, but we thought we had to do everything brand new, like completely different than anyone else had ever done it. And, I no longer, that's no longer a payoff. So, there's these great philosophies today where people talk about just being better every day, like 1% better, and small improvements, tiny tweaks to your habits, paying attention to the early part of your day so that you can manage and maintain and kind of own the rest of your day. All of those things are really a part of my new philosophy, which is just, I don't want to be the center of the story anymore. I love to be on a team of talented people. I don't want to be the lone inventor. I want everyone to get the reward that I'm getting at work from our work.
Mm-hmm.
So, some things like that changed for me.
I like that. I think one of the things that you've implemented recently on the team at Finsweet is you've kind of shifted your role, as you say, more into like a coaching role than a producer role. And it does exactly that. It allows you to almost be an advisor to each of us on the agency team. So we've got, a couple sales, a PM, and then, someone who oversees like accounts and data stuff. And it is really cool to be able to like see how you can use all of your past experience and then lay that on and allow us to share in that, and then give us the freedom and, the power to like actually implement, and just be coached along the way. So that's really cool. Very helpful thing.
It's cool for me too, by the way. Just,
yeah,
to let go of not having to do everything yourself, or having the feeling that you have to do everything yourself, and that everything has to be perfect. Like, it's more, that is rewarding, when you're out there and you're entrepreneurial and you're kicking ass and you're like, even, teaching yourself what's possible, that's all fun and everything. That's awesome. But, having a team around you and just sharing how, particularly the way you guys absorb, any advice or any discussion that we have, and then turn around and just do it yourself. I mean, you guys are incredibly, well served by your past experience, but you're quick to pick up on anything that, we everyone has hurdles. Every client, problem, becomes something, a lesson learned that we apply to everything going forward. And I see you guys do that every day. So, it's cool for me too.
Yeah. So you've started a handful of creative agencies. Some didn't work out, others were successful. And, some of them did lead to a sale or an acquisition. What do you think was unique about those agencies that sold compared to the ones that didn't work out?
Well, the ones that worked, some of it was timing. There was the the industry was moving fast. Like I said, we went from this small shop of, kind of tinkerers, to realizing we were in a sprint, a long set of sprints, really, with every big agency in the country suddenly starting to build websites. But the ones that worked were first and foremost a magnet for talent. So they were run by young Turks, right? Young, bold, kind of newcomers, and they all felt more deeply like a family than a business. And sometimes that worked out, and sometimes that was, incredibly painful. Went through a couple of downturns. Even, in fact, one of my biggest agency sale was of a team that I had run for 10 years that went from being on top to, like I said, gutted by a competitor. And then we had to build up from there again. And, eventually sold that to a big internet startup or roll up with offices all over the world. And it really was, you had to first be a magnet for talent. You had to draw talent that then did such good work that brands and clients found you. And then once they found you, you then had to deliver, both the first time and then repeatedly. And so the ones that eventually worked out over the long haul, found their place in the market, like how that could be a sustainable business. That's like, it's brewing a lot of things together, into one thing, right? You're being an entrepreneur. There's design work, there's creative conversations with clients, there's managing those expectations, putting those into I remember a funny conversation with my cousin once, who was like, you do all this amazing creative stuff, and then you spin it around onto a little disc somewhere, and it's on a hard drive somewhere, and you stream it out to your clients. And I make lotion and make it smell like coconut, and sell it people off of a shelf. And, funny thing is, he sold his business for tens of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
But he was just commenting about how much had to work well and how much you had to be successful at across all of these different areas of expertise to get just one of our projects to launch successfully. So, to figure all of that out is to remove yourself slightly from the work and to look at, first the project, then the team, and then the business. And then we figured out, this is what you can grow, or this is what you can replicate in another city, which I've had to do several times. And this is what you can sell.
That's cool. Really insightful. It feels to me like Finsweet probably has had some of that luck as well, in terms of, good timing to market, being a talent magnet, that kind of stuff. And I know your joining of Finsweet I think it was spurred by you, wasn't it? What did you see in Finsweet and in kind of the Webflow market, within the entire web design ecosystem, that kind of made you want to reach out and talk to Joe about scaling and stepping into some enterprise stuff?
Yeah. Well, we were definitely at an inflection point, and I was doing something else. I was being an entrepreneur. I was trying to launch a startup at the time, and I had found I needed to build an app, actually. So this is just, I'll show you my naivete. is I was using Webflow to build this app, and, realizing through this first experience with this tool that, oh, shoot, it doesn't build apps. It builds websites. Okay. And, but during the process, it was such a joyful experience, right? It was fun. It was fun to use. You hear this all the time within the Webflow community.
Mhm.
And I try not to, that's really not the reason to use a tool, but it is remarkable, in a way, given what I've seen, because Webflow is simply doing successfully what many people have been trying to do for literally 20 some years. I mean, I've been in these conversations where, we were trying to drag and drop things around in a browser and trying to have that right code. And, that didn't work for Macromedia. That didn't work for Adobe. That didn't work for, several people going, WordPress is the closest, and Webflow is simply doing what they always wanted to do, but doing it brilliantly. So with that experience, you suddenly have a superpower. And I realized in using this tool for the first time that every one of my past clients was going to be using Webflow. I mean, every single brand, the Neiman Marcus's, Cadillacs, Mercedes, Red Bull, all of them, every one of them was going to be, and all of their peers they were all going to be using Webflow very soon. But I looked out there and nobody was using it. But, Finsweet was doing some amazing work for some neat brands, but all kind of in the singular focus, like one-off projects. And so, yeah, I contacted I reached out to Joe. In my conversation with Joe, I was just saying, do you know there's a tsunami coming? Like, you seem so relaxed, but do you understand?
Joe is always relaxed.
He's always so chill. So I almost felt like I had to warn him, and I didn't want to get excited about this, to tell you the truth, because at that time I was launching a startup. I was not interested in running an agency, but it seemed inevitable. It seemed almost, it seemed impossible to avoid this path where, I just kind of felt like I almost had to come on board, and I just wanted to focus on, bring the focus to enterprise level clients, just by comparison. And what I mean by, there's one-off projects for clients who are happy and satisfied with their website for like 2 years, and they come back to you for edits or changes or what have you. But, early in my career, I ran NeimanMarcus.com for 4 years as a separate business. Like, we ran Neiman Marcus for them. They didn't even understand what they had, didn't even understand the value of being online so much. So we agreed to, for a monthly fee, we agreed to demonstrate that for them. And so, I worked with, directly with the creative director of Neiman Marcus in Dallas, and we ran this site that updated monthly. And that was our big thing. Like, nobody could believe we'd republish the site monthly, because it would, the design would change. I mean, for a Neiman Marcus clientele, in the fashion industry, everything, the content had to change. The design of the site had to, be adjusted and change with the season, basically. Anyway, and we didn't have these tools, right? Didn't have Webflow. But the point is, every time I would have a meeting at headquarters, all 31, a VP or representative of all 31 divisions of the company would be at my meetings. And I'm in my early 20s, sitting there as the host of a meeting where that never happened. I was told by my clients, we never get together. Every single silo of the company never has a reason to be in a meeting unless we're talking about the website, because they all wanted to fight for their real estate. They wanted to make sure their agenda on the website was met, and that their division was online. So I realized then how critical and important this, your website can be to any major company that has, multiple divisions or many products or many types of services. I mean, do you take somebody like Condé Nast? They have hundreds of properties in hundreds of places around the world. Each has all of those divisions I talked about in Nieman's, so it's so I don't have a magic formula, but I did talk to Joe about what was coming. Like the pressure of delivering to an enterprise client is to understand that type of their their unique requirements, basically, and kind of tending to them and managing that relationship and stuff. And so so far it's just going really well.
Yeah. And that comes in the form of, how you communicate, how detailed your contracts are, your policies, your internal processes that have, that are documented and can be shown. I'm learning a ton. It's like a fire hose, just stepping into enterprise work, versus, other just kind of general agency projects. So it's a lot of fun. So maybe we can transition and talk a little bit about team leadership, and team development. What advice would you give to someone who is maybe new at leading a team?
First, I would say get used to I'll just mimic a little bit what I said a bit ago, which is don't take as long as I did to be proud of the team doing performing the work. I mean, I was always proud of my teams. They were always family oriented in a way. But I was way too in the middle of things, right? So if you're managing a team, you want it to thrive because of you, but you don't really want it to depend on you, like desperately. Although many entrepreneurs organize the whole company around them, and I know I did, So it's taken a while to learn that I would rather be a torchbearer and be a coach than the quarterback. And so I would say learn that early, number one. Number two, I'm just going to pluck some things from, I would say keep your team keep your agency out of the fear-based mentality. Don't be so afraid to lose a client. It makes sense, or even fire a client, by the way, like fire toxic clients early. I don't want to say, that it's easy, because it's not. When you lose a client, you often lose a revenue stream. And so you often have to lay off some people, and that's the real painful thing. But in this business, there are an endless pool of clients and an endless pool of projects. So focus on the ones that serve you and serve your team really well. I would say, in addition to that, in managing a team, choose language that is that speaks to that always puts you on the same side as the client. So, and teach your whole team has to learn this lesson, which is you know, you're not at odds with your clients. I mean, sometimes they're a pain. They're asking for too much. They're irrational. They're demanding. They might be demanding about a deadline, or they might not appreciate the work that you've just done. But all of that is just education. So I'm not saying slough it off. I'm just saying get on the same side of the table as them. You are, in this business, unfortunately, fortunately, we have to go to the deadline together with the client, right? And so I would teach the team early on that we're in partnership with the client through the end of the launch, through the deadline. Mm-hmm. And if something's not working, then speak up. Like, be able to deliver the bad news or the things that you and your team need early. Get the client, again, move them around to the same side of the table as you, so that they understand the challenge of delivering software on a deadline, with animation and everything else that has to go with it. So, yeah.
Team building is really just about, what kind of culture do you want this group of people to follow? And it even spurs into like how we do sales. One of my favorite things that you've taught us about sales is to educate, which you were just talking about, instead of convince. Where did that come from for you? Did you, is that one of those like hard things that you just had to learn over the years?
You know what? It's possible that, for a while we were the only game in town, right? We were doing this thing called interactive media. It was before internet, right? I mean, I even refused to build websites for a year. My team was like, "Oh, showing me websites," and I was like, "God, this is god awful slow, and just a terrible experience." And come back to me when every button you click doesn't have to go back to the server and think about something and rewrite the page and come back to us. Like, when that round trip is gone, then I'll talk about it. Like, then we'll do it. And I guess that was, JavaScript was missing in the early days, so you couldn't do any browser side or client side rendering. So thank God somebody invented JavaScript. It was exactly the answer to my prayer. And so early we were the only place. So we did a lot of educating to teach clients how to buy from us. Like, you had to teach them, you had to teach them why things take the time that they take, or, whether that's a short or long amount of time. We had to teach them how much, why things cost what they cost. So I, in a way, I've just done that all my life. I also think it's just my nature, but, in a way, I never want to be a salesman. Because, if you're a salesman, you're just trying to convince them to buy from you because you need their money. You have a service and you need their money. You need them to exchange that, trade for it. And I just never wanted to be in that position in a way. I would rather be either the only one in town or just being the best at what you do. So people were asking, please do that for me. And so that, in a little way, that's not like so noble, right?
Yeah,
it's
right.
just like, I don't want to be a salesman. I could, if I'm going to be I could make a lot more money selling, private aircraft or, luxury cars or boats, or vacation homes. I could make a lot more money selling real estate. So it wasn't about the money. It was about this amazing thing that we were doing, putting design and engineering into the same project and coming up with a unique outcome. But I think that there's a lot to gain from that, because when we as our team, like you said, sells by educating, we gain their trust at a much deeper level than just convincing them that, to buy a great website from Finsweet for X price. Yeah.
And it's
So
way less stressful too.
It feels a lot better, right? It feels a lot better. Well, you're doing them a service. I mean, you know this, and now I feel like, we do. Yeah, I guess we are talking to a larger team here, so a larger group here. So you are doing them a service. You are, it feels good to be in service of other people and your clients, and so you can almost avoid any argument, any clash, any misunderstanding if you just stay in this part. I'm not talking about just blindly doing everything they ask you to do. I'm not talking about buckling and doing things that you shouldn't be doing for them. I'm saying be completely upfront and honest, and educate. And by doing that, you are being of service, and yeah, it feels a lot better. You can sleep at night, whether they buy from you or not, right? We send a lot of people away for, a couple of reasons. If they're not right for us, we send them away, but we try to give them some good advice on the way out, right? We try to send them to somebody else who's a better fit. And then, if they are a good fit for us, but it's, the Webflow is not good for them, or not the right tool for them, or we're not the right agency for them. Sometimes we're not the right mix of talent for certain projects. We do them the favor of telling them and letting them go. We can't imagine, can't pretend that we could close 100% of every lead that came through our doors.
I love seeing people use kind of like unconventional sales techniques sometimes. And one example that I really appreciate is Matt V from 80/20. He shared a tweet a while back about how he wanted to work with Hassan Minaj. And so he literally just built him a website and then sent him a cold email with a link to it. And he said, here's a website, no strings attached. If you like it, great. Would love to work with you at some point. Eventually, long story short, they did get to connect and, actually work together. So I just thought it was a really cool example of, something unconventional. Matt was just shooting his shot. Have you employed or used any kind of unique or unconventional techniques to land big clients in the past?
Unconventional, yes. I'm not sure that they were always intentional.
Yeah.
But, there's my biggest client ever, I mentioned before, was Nieman's. I just worked for them for years and years, even after everything. I got that client by turning down their first project, by doing what we were just saying, actually. So, they asked us to do something, to put a 3D fashion show on a CD-ROM. And, and you're talking about, you then think about their audience, who are generally, 45 to 70-year-old, mostly females, and who, aren't super computer savvy, not in the 1990s. And it would have been a complete disaster. So I literally refused to do this project. We were the only game in town, so they kept coming. They came back to us a couple of times, and we just said, no. And here's why. We coached them through that, why that was a bad idea, particularly for their brand. And then they, like I said, they trusted us forever after that. So trusted us with their, early website, their early e-commerce, their early, their highest end clients. I've another unconventional approach. All of the digital agencies, we once paired up. I'll cut to the chase, which is we paired up with an agency once and pitched together. So imagine, all of the early digital agencies were very small because we were all just inventive and boutique businesses. We were all scrappy, but every great website that was being done by WPP or any of those other big conglomerates was being done by either, my agency or one of our smaller friends, right? One of the boutiques. And so my agency out of San Francisco was pulled into a pitch for Nike, and another agency out of New York, out of Brooklyn, still in business today, badass agency, was pulled into a pitch for Nike. We were basically in the lobby together, and we were friends through, our own industry associations, but we both realized that we were not going to get, our work was good enough to get the work, to get the project. We had all of the same design awards. We were capable of doing the project, but we weren't capable of managing that client at that scale. We couldn't buy the media. We couldn't provide long-term strategy. Neither of us. So we came into the lobby for our pitches, and we were back to back. I think we were supposed to pitch first, and then 90 minutes later, they were supposed to pitch after us. And we decided in the 30 minutes before going into 15 minutes before going into the pitch that we would all just roll in together. And we knew we were both going to lose on our own. So we decided to pitch Nike that we could. Now, we were both doing work for Nike separately. We were doing, my team was doing Nike skateboarding, and they were doing some other division of Nike, but we were, getting pulled in for one of the huge accounts, right? And so we rolled into the meeting together, and the client was a little confused. They were like, "What's going on here?" And we said, "We realize each of us has the talent to do the work, but we're not enough on our own, but we think we're perfect together." So we pitched the entire thing together. After prep, each agency pitches, you prepare for those things for like a week or so.
Right.
And then we go in and we rewrite it like 15 minutes in the lobby before the pitch and rolled in. No, we didn't get that job, but we got huge kudos for doing it.
Wow.
The gravitas, so to speak, and the kudos from the client was enormous. And so we both did, other work for Nike for a long time as well. But
yeah, I was gonna say the kudos is almost just as good as winning the project.
Almost.
Almost.
Almost. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
As we have enterprise clients that we're starting to work with at Finsweet. There is a unique perspective that you have brought to the agency from your experience. And this is kind of like a dual question of, what are some of those unique requirements that enterprise clients have? And I think those are probably the things that you have brought and kind of meshed into Finsweet and are bringing. And still, there's probably some things that you haven't pulled out of the toolbox yet. That Finsweet is going to need one day. What are some of those things that, an enterprise level of service requires?
Right. Well, enterprise clients, they are not the end client. So when you're working with a startup, you're sometimes working with a founder, or you're working with a co-founder, or one of the people on a small team, and they really own the project. At enterprise clients, they own the project, but there's layers above them of management or bosses that have great expectations. The brand, the website, the marketing programs, the marketing plans, the strategy, all of that means a lot to a lot of other people. So to understand the pressure that's on your client, your contact, is the first distinction. Like they're under so much pressure from a group of people that they don't even talk to that often, right? Because it's not just their boss, it's their boss's boss and their boss's boss's boss, who are looking at the website as soon as it launches and saying things like, whoa, why does it work this way? Why does that, why is it slow? Why doesn't it show up on my phone? Why, why this, why that? Why wasn't it ready yesterday? So they're under a tremendous amount of pressure. So we have to understand the teams that are, and the team dynamics that are at play at an enterprise level. Secondly, you have to think about it as an account, not a project. I mean, you do have to, there's a project manager and a developer and a designer that has to get the work done, but somebody's got to be thinking about that account, because there's just so many other dependencies and attachments. So we haven't implemented an account level yet at Finsweet, but that's our next evolution, right? We have developers, designers, project managers, all great. We have ninjas that are specialists in any, all kind of particular areas, whether it's SEO or performance or what have you. But taking ownership as an agency of account and account strategy, whether you're hired for it or not, the fact that you wake up every day thinking, how does this client, how do they leverage this website? Where do they go next? And, anticipating their needs, their needs to grow their team, their needs to be, their needs to manage the site internally, whatever. That's really the biggest distinction between going from project work to enterprise level work. And, fortunately, Webflow is doing an amazing job of upgrading the tool set, right? Updating the platform, not updating, but upgrading the platform with all of this, collaboration tools and enterprise level services in mind. It's critical. Webflow, when I came on board 3 years ago, you couldn't put two people in the same project together, obviously, until just recently. But fortunately, and I've seen that go horribly, by the way, right? In the past, there are companies that, couldn't grow the back end of the tool, even though Webflow was brilliant on the front end and amazing as just in the designer for the individual developer. It was not built for, big teams, for large teams and for large clients. So they rebuilt it. And frankly, I've seen that done many times again, sometimes well and sometimes really poorly. And Webflow did a really great job. So now we're in this space to deliver for these clients with a platform that can handle it.
Yeah. It's really, really key. And what do you think are, I think Webflow is obviously growing. They're developing their own, enterprise level of service on the kind of product account side. What do you see as maybe some of the areas that agencies, people listening, if they're running a smaller agency or a team developing around Webflow, what are some of the things that they should be, thinking about moving forward as they want to work with bigger clients?
One is something I just mentioned, which is definitely having, you can have project managers and you can have account executives. And those two typically sit side by side, typically manage multiple projects and multiple accounts, but are in close communication with each other. And so you end up having two people in an enterprise relationship. You end up having an account executive who's really in a relationship with the client about the future, about their future work. And then you have project managers who are in relationship with the client about the current work, right? What is being built today. And so you imagine somebody like a Condé Nast or Condé Nast is too big. Like down even within Condé Nast, there are, individual brands, the Vogue, Vanity Fair, Wired magazine. Each of those, has an account executive at your firm if you're lucky enough to be their agency. And there are probably multiple projects going on for each of those brands where there's a project manager or more, one or more project managers running making sure those projects get delivered. But the account executive is thinking about the future of, what happens when this is launched? What happens this fall? What happens in, 2024? And if it's your agency and you run a small agency, this account executive is you. So you're not hiring an account executive. You are the account executive for each one of those clients. So I think that's the first distinction. The first thing an agency needs to do to be ready for an enterprise account. Then the second thing is just a level of readiness for response, right? Most enterprise clients sign service level agreements. And so you're literally signing a contract that says that site will not be down more than 0.1% of the year. And your response time is, literally 90 minutes. At any hour of the day, you will be calling us back. The client is getting the promise that they will be getting a call back within 90 minutes on any level red emergency. And they have other service level requirements in that. So they're not, a huge client is not, it's not always good for a smaller agency. Don't bite off more than you can chew. Do great work, do the best work for each client at each size. We once, from my agency in San Francisco, we once prepared for 6 weeks for a pitch for a $20 million account with Gatorade. And in the end, we were the only of 6 agencies that pitched. We were the only one brought back in that day. Everyone flew to Chicago. Everyone were in different hotels. Everyone went in to pitch at a different time. We were brought in back the next morning. We were called that later that day and said, we want to see you again. We were brought in the next morning. We were the only agency brought back for the second conversation. And they proceeded to tell us how amazing our strategy was, how incredible the design was, how brilliant and insightful we were about their customer, and it was all about a product launch, and how we had helped them develop the unique language for this customer and for this launch. And they then told us, and we were just so rewarded. We were like, this is it. We're getting the job. And they said, so we've decided we can't hire you. And they said, you're too small. And we said, no, but wait, we'll grow. We already have plans. We already figured out who we were going to hire and how we were going to do that and how we were going to keep up with them. And they said, no, it's for your own good. We will literally put you out of business. You will be scrambling to appease us at every turn and to meet all of our demands and to reply on time. You will staff yourself to the hilt, and you will have all of your eggs in one basket. And then at any turn around any corner, some VP in another building in another city somewhere could easily say, change everything. We're going to go in this new direction, or kill that product, or whatever. And they liked us so much that, just personally, the chemistry, and everything, and the respect for the work and the ideas and stuff was so great. They said, we don't want to kill you. And so for that reason, we're out. And we were just crushed, but, you had to, you had to understand.
Yeah. Yeah, I've realized.
Surprising, surprising sense of responsibility on their part.
For real.
Yeah, to choose the second best pitch from a much larger agency, and they just decided it was better for everyone, and that was really
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. Well, what they knew was that, you know, and what I think I'm learning through, Finsweet's growth and through working under you is enterprise service is less about the creative changing and more about the team around the creative changing and growing.
That's right.
Because your creative deliverable, whether it be a website or a logo, probably isn't going to change much working with, a 50-person business versus a 1,000-person business. You might have some other, things involved in that enterprise level, but for the most part, the creative is probably going to stay very similar. But it's all of the other layers around those creative roles that have to grow and be able to support and manage the communication and all this other stuff that you're saying. So that's really insightful.
Yeah. At its very core, intimated this before, if I had a talent, it's getting designers and engineers and clients all working together. That is the core of each one of these projects. But to service an enterprise level account, and particularly not being stuck with one of them, you need more than one, or the Gatorade story, holds true. That you have one account that's too big, and when they disappear, you also crash. So to have not just one, but many enterprise accounts, you have to have this operational layer and these procedures and protocols, which, frankly, I'm not very interested in. Like, I don't love that part of the business. I'm not really a process guy. And I've worked for some really good process guys and guys and girls. I mean, literally, they make all of that possible by, gluing the team together with a solid process and a set of procedures that you can turn to when you don't know what's next or what to do, how to respond. So that's not my skill. It is my experience. I know that it's needed, so I'm pushing for it hard at Finsweet. Right, we're growing that stuff. I'm pushing you guys hard for that stuff. I'm not just weaving that myself over here in the corner, but it is a very different business. Yeah, you want to grow in steps and stages, and your clients will change in steps and stages. It's really healthy to go from clients that match you at every step to just the next step, one at a time.
Yeah. Well, maybe we can wrap up with one final question, and I have a story that you've told me before that I'd love for you to share. The question is around attracting good talent and keeping them, retaining them for a long time. How do you do that? And I remember a story you shared recently with us about a designer that you had hired, and I think they were just like a really good artist on paper, but they had zero experience with digital creation tools, and that's kind of what you needed them to do. So maybe kind of tell us that story, and then also give some tips if you have any about retaining good talent.
Oh, wow. Well, being a talent magnet is so critical. So, I don't know if I have all of the best advice for this. The story you're talking about is Troy. So Troy was my first employee, other than my business partner, like my buddy from college, right? We had to go out and hire our first employee, and it was an instinct at the time, probably because, all of the interactive media in those early days was ugly. It looked like it looked terrible. And so, things were, because they could only be built by engineers, and I even mean like older engineers, not the 20-year-old geniuses that we have today. We're talking about like old clunky engineers. All of those good examples coming from my earliest clients like Sony and Philips and these electronics companies. They were, all this stuff was ugly. So I knew that I needed to not hire somebody in the computer science department because, they were drawn to all of this innovative but ugly stuff that was being put out there. I needed to do something else. I needed to improve that. So I actually went to an art school and met with students who there was a computer and animation group that was all graduating, but I didn't interview any of them because they would have been less talented and, kind of more geeky, more drawn to the tech and less drawn to the pencil and paper and fine arts. And so I found this amazing illustrator, this guy who just could draw anything on any medium. And I hired him and put him down in front of a Macintosh computer and in front of Photoshop and just showed him a few things. And it was at the end of that day, it was not until the end of the day that we didn't realize how computer illiterate he was, because he'd been working all day long in Photoshop and had never once saved his work. So he got to the end of the day and he didn't know how to shut the computer down. He didn't know how to close Photoshop. He literally put the pen down and just walked away. And it was still a file that was open called untitled. He just literally had that. It had no experience. So anyway, the very next day we realized, okay, now, we're going to have to teach him, some of the fundamentals, like how to open, how to save, and that kind of thing. But that decision paid off so much. We got, I had Sony printing 10,000 discs of our first project for them for free and distributing it around the world. In a magazine as an insert, because everything we had produced on their interactive platform when with using their software was beautiful, and people hadn't seen beautiful before in that space. That then got me a job. I had an agency from Holland fly me over to show them to consider doing a big project for one of their biggest clients. And I had the disc we had done for Sony, which was beautiful. And they said, well, show me your other work. And, they were imagining that I had a portfolio of these discs full of other beautiful work. And I didn't. I had this really ugly, awful project we'd done for a telephone company that was an example of kind of the gross stuff. That was the only other project we had done. So imagine I'm flying over in my briefcase and I literally leave the ugly disc in the hotel because I didn't want to be convinced by anyone to share it, to show it, no matter how hard the conversation got. So I left the ugly work in the hotel. I took the only disc I had that was beautiful, took it into the meeting. The creative director sat there for 10 minutes grilling me like, wait, you have nothing else to show? And I said, well, we have plenty of other work, but I didn't bring it with me. And I just turned it took me a while. I even think they adjourned the meeting in frustration and anger. And I think then we got back together because I had flown all the way from Dallas, Texas to a little town in backwoods Holland to talk about this project. And I said, look, my work is the only example from any agency that shows that we can do the project for you. Is that right? And he said, yeah. He goes, I want it to be like this one disc you have. And I go, okay, it will be. So are we going to work on the project together or not? So out of frustration, he was frustrated, but against his will, and just the logistics of the moment, we went through this conversation, with this whole this afternoon together, working together. And he goes, okay, well, I've decided you pulled it off. I got satisfactory work from you. We worked together well. I can tell that you know what you're doing, etc. And I'm going to hire you. It was years later when I finally told him that we didn't have any other work that first day. The work that we had was terrible, and thank God it all worked out. But you do great work even on a small project, even on a free project. Even where there's an opportunity for your work to go public, do a very small scale project, but do it brilliantly, and pass that around as much as possible. Right? Don't take on the biggest project and also try to make that award winning. Right? Find something a small scale. Let that be shared. So that Sony disc got me invited to Eindhoven. Eindhoven got me in front of Photokina, which is one of the largest. We did an interactive display that was like floor to ceiling, which was the project that I won. Where from a kiosk you could control the wall, and they just that got me more work, and that led to many other things. Again, some of this was timing, but talented people were, not just more clients, which I've kind of got off on this rail that clients come to you, but so do other designers and engineers and even salesmen. I've even had people, beat my door down to say, I want to work with you because you guys are doing incredible work and I can't produce that myself, but I'd be happy to sell it. So high quality work, don't take on too much. Let everyone share it. That's a lesson that this generation knows very well because of social media. My generation didn't know that very well. You kind of were all proprietary about everything, but share it and grow wisely. But you're attracting clients and you're attracting talent at the same time with that work.
Yeah. And I think as long as you continue to do that consistently, then the talent that you do attract will want to stay.
Yeah. And then, there's a lot to be said about taking good care of people that work for you. Understanding their needs and being sensitive to their balance. I've burned out and/or lost friends or lost the balance in my life in my early career enough to be very sensitive about not letting our team do that. Right? We're very proactive about being reasonable with clients and client demands and client deadlines and your own expectations. So
awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. This was a really, really fun conversation that we got to have with Jay, and I hope you have learned something. If you like this type of content, please leave a comment and like and subscribe. We will see you in the next one.
This was fun. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was helpful, and we'll see you at the next one.